Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for being here on time. So it is exactly 1 o'clock. So without further ado, let's get started. So the title of this webinar, thank you very much for joining me, is How I Made £1 Million by Investing in Property. So we're going to look at a couple of things. I'll tell you what, let's go to the first slide and let's talk you through what we're going to look at. So the first thing that I'm going to look at are the structure to follow to ensure that you're successful in property. There's obviously a lot of different ways that you can make money from property. Lots of different strategies, lots of different ways of using those strategies. But what should you do? What's the most prevalent way for you to do it? Because look, I'm going to show you the way that I did it. I'm going to show you my plan, and I'm going to show you my mistakes all the way through my journey in property, which continues today. You know, it's still ongoing. But I'm also going to take a step back and I'm going to show you the objective overview of property, because what I did and what you should do could be two completely different things, but there is still a process. There's still a structure for how you can make sure that you're going to be successful. So I'll show you how to decide what you're going to focus on. And then with how you decide what you're going to focus on, the expected timelines of it, because it's important to set yourself realistic goals. Because if you're coming into property and you have chosen a strategy that you're familiar with, and your goals are completely misaligned with that strategy because you're being far too ambitious or not ambitious enough, then you can become detached from the goals that you've set yourself, which is not what you need to do. You need to make sure that you're always aligned with your goals. So we're going to have a look at making sure that your goals and what you want to achieve in property is aligned with the targets that you have. So first of all, where did I start? And there she is. That was the first investment property that I ever bought. And that is on Kingsford Street in Salford. So that was a 2-bedroom terraced house in Salford, and I bought it for £67,500. And honestly, do you want to know why I bought it? I bought that house because the alleyway behind the house was quite nice. No word of a lie. That's why we first looked at it. The estate agent had some pictures, and there was this picture from the front of the house, and then the second picture was the alleyway. Now that I am more experienced in property, then that starts to trigger a few questions in me. So the questions are, why is he showing me the alleyway as the second picture? Why am I not seeing the inside of the house? What's going on with the inside of the house? But anyway, we looked at this alleyway. We liked it. We liked the rest of the house was so bog standard. It was absolutely bog standard with all of the half decent properties in Salford. So we bought the property because we had a bit of excess money, to be perfectly honest. I've always been interested in property. I hadn't done anything up until I bought this house about 15 years ago, but I'd always been interested in property. And I knew that if I had some money that I was going to invest in property. And around this time, that's when it happened. I was running my own business. I created excess cash, and I decided to purchase this property. So bought this and then put a tenant in it. And that was it. That was literally the extent of my property investing strategy at that point. Bought a property, put a tenant in it. Now, it took me a good couple of months to realize that actually I wasn't making a huge amount of money. You know, I was taking the money from the rent, I was putting it into the bank account, I was paying the expenses from the house, of which there weren't that many. And I was making about 100 quid. I think it was just under 100 quid per month. And I remember thinking after about 6 months, this isn't right. This isn't how it should be. I own property. I have tenants. I own things. I just bought something for nearly 70 grand. How am I only making another £100 a month? This doesn't feel right. But my initial plan when I first started was as sophisticated as I'll make enough money every year to buy another one of these. And so in 25 years, I'll own 25 of these. So adjustment, you need to make an adjustment for inflation, but that would give me about 2.5 grand a month in 25 years time. And that would be a good supplement to my pension. That was literally the plan that I had. But the amount of time and effort that I put into creating that plan was having a 5-minute think about it. You know, that was literally it. So this was the second property that I bought. And at this point, I'd already got a small portfolio. So this was a couple of years later. And I already had a couple of buy-to-lets. And I was getting a bit more sophisticated now because I thought, well, buying something and putting somebody in there, that's all well and good. But actually, what if I bought something and and it was a bit of a tip, and I did it up. And then when I've done it up, I can refinance it and then I can rent it out, because that leverages my money more. So I'd started to watch some YouTube stuff, but again, it wasn't very sophisticated. I had a small portfolio. I was making a small cash flow, but really taking on this strategy as well just meant that I was doing an awful lot of work. So this is the second property. This is the probably fourth or fifth property that I bought. This was on Fram Street in Salford, and this was bought from a housing association, and it was a real tip. It was a real tip. We needed to do a full refurbishment of this property. Now, luckily, we got a bit of money from the local council to take on this property, so the uplift that we generated was very good, because it didn't require any of my money. But then again, I was still only making about 100 quid a month, and it wasn't right. So I knew that I needed to do something about it. So this is me. My name's Chris Kirkwood. I'm the franchise director here at Source. I've grown and run and started and scaled many different companies over the last 20 years. I've been involved in property for the last 15 roughly years now, and been involved in deals from £55,000 to 150 million. And actually, I'm just going to skip back here. That was the £55,000 house, that one there. So I've been involved in lots of different types of property deals. I've built my own portfolio, executing on a number of different strategies, which we're going to go through in just a little while. And now I run the franchise side of the business, and basically help other people to make money out of property. That is my role. So after 4 or 5 years of executing the strategy that I'd created, which was just buy stuff, put somebody in there, or the slightly more sophisticated one, buy it, do it up, put somebody in there. At that point, I thought, right, this can't be right. I need to give this some thought. So I discovered refinancing, but that was really the only creative thing that I was aware of. So I started to put my time and effort into property education. And honestly, that was done on Facebook, and that was done on YouTube. Because around then there wasn't a huge amount of information out there. There were a couple of property training companies, but I didn't want to go down that route, because I don't think there's much value in education on its own. But what I needed help with was that support. So that second circle there, the support, because I could find out the information. I could find out enough information to start moving forward, but I needed support, the support of somebody to, give me a kick up the arse, or shimmy me along, or encourage me that I was doing the right thing. And that support person, or that mentor that I had at that time, I wanted them to provide me with accountability as well. And also a step back, a look at the strategies, a look at the different options that I had for investing into property. And this was the first thing that I did. It was rent to rent HMO. That was the first property strategy that I properly, apart from buy to let, that I properly committed to. So rent to rent HMO. And the reason that I've committed to that first, even though every year I had enough money to buy properties, the finance wasn't the issue, but what I wanted from rent to rent HMO was money, a constant cash flow, so that I could exit the job that I'd created for myself. I could sell the business that was taking up all of my time, and I could go into property full time. So that was my first proper strategy. So I did rent to rent HMO, and this is the landlord right here. And I would pay the landlord £1,000 a month. I'm just going to explain roughly what rent to rent HMO is. This is me right here. So I would be paying the landlord £1,000 per month, and then I would take that property and I would rent it out to 6 people, 5 or 6 people, and each one of those people would pay me a monthly bill for renting out that room from them. So here's a typical example. Well, actually, this is a pretty good example, but this is an example of how rent to rent works. So I pay out £1,000, I cover all the bills for the house. So let's say that's £600. The rent that I'm taking in from this house is 3,200. And that means that monthly I put in my pocket, if I've got 100% occupancy, just over £2,000. So that was a typical rent to rent example. Now, what I did after that, in fact, let me just go back to the previous screen. What I did after that, I built that for a couple of years. So I built that. It took me a couple of years because, again, there was no training out there for this kind of thing. And other people, all they did was get it wrong. Sorry, there was no training out there for this kind of thing. When I started this strategy, all I did was get it wrong. I would contact estate agents. I would contact letting agents. I would contact vendors directly, and I would get it wrong. So I had to go through a process of getting it wrong and getting it wrong and getting it wrong until I got it right. And when I got it right, I signed up 6 of these contracts within 6 months. So I was making around £6,000 or £7,000 per month just by managing these properties. And it only took me about 2.5 hours a week, something like that. So it wasn't very time hungry. But that allowed me to exit my day job and put all of my time and effort into property. From that point on, I then went back to flips and I went back to buy to let. And I started, now that I could put all of my time and effort into property, I went back to building my portfolio and doing it in a much more creative way, because now I'd started to learn about contracts and finance and all the nuances and finer details of things that you could get into with property that meant that you could purchase stuff, or you could make deals work that other people couldn't, because you understand that an exchange contract gives you actually quite a lot of flexibility to negotiate with the person that's selling the deal. So at that point, I'd gone from creating a cash flow for myself, then going into buy to let and flips and building my portfolio. And then gradually, as time went on and the amount of money that I had to reinvest in property grew, I then started to look at bigger projects like small commercial conversions. That's when Steve and I met. So Steve is the founder of Sourced. And then from that point on, we started to work together. And we've started to work together to build much bigger schemes. So we've got a scheme down in Taunton at the minute, which is roughly about 70 flats that we're creating out of a commercial building. We've got a number of different schemes around the country, which are around 14, 15 flats. Again, we're creating out of commercial buildings or care homes or hotels, or just big buildings that are absolutely perfect for a flat conversion. So that's my path through property and how I've negotiated my way. And as you'll see, I mean, I've just told you that the first thing that I did was a mistake. But what I did, and what I've always been committed to, is making sure that I'm moving forward. If I'm learning about something, I'm putting it into practice straight away. If I've got if I don't know, some property strategies, I'm still going to start on the strategies that I've already got, because I want to be moving forward constantly. And these are the three things that you need to take into consideration when you're creating your strategy: your short term, your medium term, and your long term. So for short term, what is your strategy? What do you need? Now, actually, what I needed was cash flow, because I wanted to exit the other company that I built up. Now, for you, it might be different. You might not need that cash flow because you might be very happy with the job that you've got. So you might not have a short-term requirement for property to fulfill. But I did. And the way that I created that cash flow was from rent to rent HMO. So that was my short-term strategy. My medium-term strategy was then flips. So I moved on to flips because I had a pot of money. I wanted to create more pots of money. I wanted to grow that pot of money so that I could get into bigger and bigger and bigger deals and see bigger profit margins. So my second strategy, my medium-term strategy, because obviously flips take longer than executing a rent-to-rent deal. So my second strategy was then flips. And then my long-term strategy at that point was HMO, was converting HMOs and running those HMOs over a long period of time. Now, when you're looking at putting your own plan together, you've got lots of different choices. You've got lots of different choices that you can choose for, either short term, medium term, or long term. And it's completely down to your situation, your own financial situation, your own personal situation, your own skill set, even. It's completely down to that as to what is the right route for you to go through. But we at Source use this plan for each and every one of our franchisees. So at Source, we have about just over 200 franchisees. So we've got 200 people that we're helping to grow their own property portfolios, their own property wealth every single day. And the structure of Source is based on what I've just taken you through, because that is the correct way to go through property, obviously without making the mistake of choosing some random strategies to start off with. But when you're educated and when you know what you're talking about, and you know you've got somebody by your side to have a look at your situation and lead you down the right path, then that is why Source is structured in that way. So Source is basically a combination of two different companies. We're the franchise business and Source Capital. Now, the franchise business, we offer property training to all of our franchisees. And I'm just scrolling through our online training platform, showing you all the courses that we've got that we offer to all of our franchisees. And the franchisees, they can jump onto this, they can take up that course, they can watch it at their own convenience because it's online, and they can learn that strategy or that individual snippet of property information. But all of these courses we also put in person as well. So franchisees can come and spend a day in a classroom with us, or a couple of days in the classroom, and learn that strategy. We cover all strategies. We're not exclusive. We're here to help people make money out of property. So we cover all strategies. And then the online stuff, it includes tests to make sure that you're learning correctly. Here are some of our guys at one of the face-to-face training courses. We also put on regular meetups for all of our guys. So once a quarter, we have a regular meetup, and all of the support team is there. I'll talk to you about the support team in just a second. And we get together, we share information about the property market. We look at different opportunities that presents for us. And then we have a goal setting session where we all sit down and say, right, for the next 90 days, what am I going to achieve? So the structure of support is that a franchisee will come to HQ for training, for induction training when they first start. And then after that, they'll sit down with their support person and create a 12-month goal. Every quarter in that 12 months, we've got the Sourced Summit that they should commit to, but every single month, they should have an accountability call with their support person. And they have an unlimited amount of one-to-ones that they can book on with their support person at any point during that month. The support person has no control over how many times that franchisee books in, because the franchisee has a link and they can book directly into that support person's calendar. One of the other things that we provide here at Sourced is leads, because that's, again, what did I struggle with when I was growing my property business? Well, I wanted to find more deals. I couldn't find good enough deals. So we've tried to create a system where we scour online for different types of deals like HMOs, new builds, commercial conversions and flips. And if something passes the numbers that we've put together for that, that is then passed on to the franchisee, and that is their lead to pursue. So we even make finding the deal a lot easier than simply, firing up Rightmove and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, because we've put our tech and our knowledge and our automation behind that to help them. One of the other things that we have at Source is funding. We've created, and this is where Source Capital come in, we've created a company which is a peer-to-peer company that can fund up to 100% of the purchase price and the works costs of doing a project. Now, this funding company is only available to our franchisees. So for the people that are in our network, just over those 200 people, we've got training, we've got support, we've got funding, and we've got leads. So we're making that whole system of finding the property so much and funding the property so much easier. But we're doing it under the banner that I've just showed you of how I made my money out of property, which is doing it in the right way. And when we first sit down with each and every franchisee, we are talking to them about their cash flow. We're talking to them about not how are they going to do a deal in 6 months' time, but how are they going to spend the next 5 to 10 years building their property wealth. and doing it correctly. A couple of other features that we've set up for our franchisees are the auction. Our in-house sourced auctions, so franchisees can sell deals through auction. And we've set up a property investor, the Source Property Investor app. So if franchisees want to make cash flow by selling deals onto investors, they can do that in the app. We attract lots of investors to look at this app, to look at the deals that are in there, and then it's the franchisees' deals that they buy. We've got over 130,000 investors that are registered to our database, so we have absolutely no problems whatsoever in helping our franchisees sell these deals. In fact, we have franchisees that sell between 20 and 30 deals every single month that are making cash flow of up to £50,000 to £60,000 per month just from selling deals on. We also make this a very easy package for people to get hold of. So we've got everything in our portal: the CRM, the deal calculator, our online training, the events that franchisees can go to. We make it all very simple for them to have access to. So essentially, Source has been set up because of our experience in property, because of our experience and the success that we've had in property. That is why Source has been set up in this structure. Because if you want training and you want support, you can get that from a training company. You can get that from a trainer that only offers training. If you want a mentor, or if you want unlimited support, then you can get that from a mentor. Roughly going to cost you about 500 quid a month for that. If you want investor leads, or if you want property leads, then you're going to get that from a lead generation company. And again, they're about 50 quid, not 50 million, they're about 50 quid per lead. If you want access to property leads, or if you want access to, if you want access to property leads, then you can get them through an agent. Obviously, the majority of agents sell properties in the UK, so that's where you would go in order to access property deals. If you want lending, if you want funding or an agreement in principle, you can get that from a lender, like a mortgage company, like a bridging company. If you want an agreement in principle, or if you want a JV partner, you'll have to go out and find a JV partner by going to networking events or by going to Facebook, that kind of thing. But the reason that we've started Source is so we can answer all of those questions. We can tick yes to every single one of those boxes, because it's all included in the package that we've created for our franchisees. And the cost of being involved in that package is $12,999 plus VAT. And that's for 5 years, not just for 1 year, that's for 5 years. That secures you to us for 5 years, to all of these facilities for 5 years. And then it's £245 per month, and that's it. So I hope you found this informative. I hope this gives you a different perspective on what you should be doing if you want to grow your own property wealth. It really does start from cash flow. That is by far the most important thing that you've got to make sure that you've covered. There's no point in starting a deal that's going to make you 10 million quid if you've got absolutely no hope whatsoever of getting to the end of that deal, because you're going to run out of money way before the end of that deal. It's all about doing things properly, doing things sensibly, having the backup and support of somebody that's by your side all the way through that journey, but making sure that you're doing things correctly means that you're much more likely to get to that end and make the money that you're looking for. So thanks very much for spending this time with me. You've got 2 QR codes here if you want to book a couple of meetings and have a conversation with us about taking this forward. But otherwise, really appreciate your time. Thanks very much for spending your Wednesday afternoon with me, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye.